The great doors of the Galactic Coalition Hall opened with a soft hiss, and Taiho stepped inside. The hall was massive. Its ceiling stretched so high that clouds of light moved through it like living things. Crystals lined the walls, and they changed color based on the mood of the room. Right now, they glowed a cold blue. Curiosity mixed with judgment, Taiho walked forward. His boots made heavy sounds on the polished floor. Each step echoed through the silence that had fallen over the thousands of beings watching him. He was human. That alone made him interesting to some and invisible to others. Humanity was young among the stars. 300 years of space travel meant nothing to species that had been building empires for 10,000 years or more. But it was not his. Species that drew the stars dot, it was his. Armor. The chest plate had a crack that ran from his left shoulder down to his right hip. The metal had been welded back together, but the scar remained ugly and visible. His shoulder guards were dented. One of them had a hole the size of a fist that had been covered with a patch of different colored metal. His leg plates were scratched so deeply that the original paint was completely gone in some places. Burn marks covered his left arm guard. The helmet under his arm had a long groove across its face, as if something with claws had tried to tear it open. The armor looked like it had been pulled from a garbage pile. It looked like something a poor soldier would wear because he could not afford better. It looked broken. The whispers started immediately. Ambassador. Yuna watched from the human delegation's area near the left side of the hall. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and a calm face that hid her worry. She had served humanity's interests in this hall for 12 years. She knew how these aliens thought. She knew what they valued, and she knew they were already laughing at her people. Abba, tall being with scales that shimmered like oil on water, leaned toward his companion. His name was Vorix, and he served the Fen Imperium. His voice was loud enough to carry. "The humans send us their garbage collector," he said. "Look at that armor. I have seen better equipment on dead pirates." His companion, a creature with 4 arms and skin like bark, made a sound that might have been laughter. Perhaps they could not afford anything else. Their species is still paying off the debt from their first colony ships. More laughter. It spread through the hall like poison in water. The Cal delegation sat on raised platforms near the center of the room. They were beings made of living metal, their bodies shifting and reforming constantly. They were considered the greatest warriors in the known galaxy. When they saw Taiho's armor, they turned their backs as one. In Cal culture, this was the worst insult possible. It meant the person was not worth looking at. Ho did not react. He walked to the empty seat reserved for the human military representative and sat down. His cracked armor scraped against the chair. The sound was sharp in the quiet hall. Yuna moved through the crowd and sat beside him. She kept her voice low. "You could have worn the new suit," she said. "The council provided ceremonial armor for exactly this reason. You are representing all of humanity. First impressions matter here." "I know," Taiho said. His voice was calm, quiet, like a lake with no wind. "Then why?" Yuna asked. "Why wear that? They are already calling us primitive. They think we sent you because we have no real warriors. The Ven delegation is talking about blocking our petition for a seat on the military council. Let them talk." Yuna's hands tightened in her lap. "This is not a game, Taiho. The military council controls defense agreements for 300 systems. If we are not at that table, humanity has no voice when wars are declared. No voice when borders are drawn. We will be subjects, not partners. I understand. Do you? Because right now, every species in this hall is looking at you and seeing weakness. They see broken armor and they think broken soldier. Broken species." Taiho turned his head slightly. His eyes met hers. They were dark and steady, and something in them made Yuna stop talking. They see what they want to see, he said. That is the point. Before Yuna could ask what he meant, a chime rang through the hall. The day's session was beginning. The grand speaker rose from his platform at the far end of the room. He was a being called an Orvith, a species known for their neutrality and their love of procedure. His body was like a tall column of pale flesh with dozens of small arms and 3 large eyes that moved independently. The coalition welcomes all delegates, the grand speaker announced. Today, we continue discussions on military cooperation and the petition from the human delegation for observer status on the military council. A rumble of voices filled the hall. Some species supported humanity. Most did not. Delegate Vorix raised one of his scaled hands. I wish to speak. The grand speaker nodded. The chair recognizes the Fen Imperium. Vorix stood. He was tall, nearly 3 meters, and his scales caught the light as he moved. He was beautiful in the way a predator was beautiful. Dangerous and proud. I mean no disrespect to our human guests, Vorix said in a tone that dripped with disrespect. But I must question the wisdom of granting military council access to a species that cannot even equip its soldiers properly. He gestured toward Taiho. Every eye in the hall followed. Look at their representative. His armor is falling apart. This is the warrior they send to speak for their military strength. This is their best. Vorix let the question hang in the air. If this is humanity's best, then perhaps humanity is not ready for the responsibilities we are discussing. Laughter again. Louder this time. More confident. Taiho sat still. His hands rested on the table in front of him. They were large hands, rough with old scars. He did not look at Vorix. He did not defend himself. Yuna stood quickly. The human delegation objects to this personal attack. Delegate Taiho is a decorated officer with, please, Vorix interrupted, holding up a hand. I am not attacking. I am observing. Facts are not attacks. And the fact is that your representative looks like he lost a fight with a mining drill. The hall erupted in laughter once more. Yuna's face flushed with anger, but protocol demanded she sit. She had no grounds to continue. The insult was wrapped in just enough politeness to be allowed. The session continued. Other matters were discussed. Trade routes, shipping disputes, a border conflict between 2 minor species. But throughout it all, Yuna noticed that delegates kept glancing at Taiho, some with amusement, some with pity, a few with open contempt. When the session ended for the day, Yuna walked beside Taiho as they left the hall. Other delegations passed them. Some made comments just loud enough to hear. Others simply looked and shook their heads. A young warrior from the coal stopped directly in front of Taiho. His metal body reformed into a shape that was clearly meant to mock human form, complete with fake cracks and dents. Human, Tickle said. Where did you find your armor? A children's museum? His companions laughed. Taiho looked at the young warrior for a long moment. Then he simply walked around him without a word. Yuna hurried to catch up. How can you let them treat you like this? You are not some fresh recruit. You have more combat experience than anyone I know. Why not tell them? Taiho kept walking. Because words mean nothing here. They only believe what they can see. And what will you show them? He did not answer. But as they walked, Yuna noticed something she had missed before. The way other delegates moved around Taiho, not with the casual avoidance of someone unimportant, but with the careful distance of animals who sensed something they did not understand, something that made them nervous. She looked at the cracked armor again, at the welds and patches and scars. And for the first time, she wondered if the damage was not a sign of weakness at all. Maybe it was a record. A record of things that should have killed him and did not. 3 days passed in the Galactic Coalition Hall. 3 days of meetings and debates and votes on matters that seemed small but carried the weight of civilizations. And 3 days of mockery aimed at the human soldier with the broken armor. Taiho endured it all in silence. On the second day, someone scratched the word "scrap" into the door of his assigned quarters. The letters were deep, carved by something sharp. Taiho looked at them for a moment when he returned from the morning session. Then he went inside and slept. On the third day, young warriors from several delegations began following him through the halls. They kept their distance, but made sure he could hear their jokes. They spoke loudly about humans, about how they were soft, how they broke easily, how their bones were hollow like birds and their skin tore like wet paper. None of this was true. But truth did not matter to them. Only the feeling of superiority. Yuna watched all of this with growing frustration. She had tried to file complaints with the Coalition's Conduct Office. She had been told that the behavior, while unfortunate, did not violate any formal rules. Words were not weapons. Insults were not crimes. We should leave, she told Taiho on the third evening. They sat in the small dining area reserved for minor delegations. The food was bland, designed to be safe for all species, which meant it tasted like nothing to everyone. Pull our petition. Come back in a few years with a different approach. No, Taiho said. He ate slowly, methodically, as if the meal was a task to be completed. They will never take us seriously. We have become a joke. When the vote happens, we will lose. And we will lose badly. It is better to withdraw now with some dignity than to be publicly rejected. Taiho set down his eating utensil. Dignity is not given. It is taken. Before Yuna could respond, the doors to the dining area opened. A delegation entered. Yuna recognized them immediately and felt her stomach drop. The Ven, sovereignty. They were a species that resembled the great cats of Earth, but larger. Much larger. Their leader, Commander Darak, stood over 2.5 meters tall. His fur was dark gold, and his eyes were the color of molten copper. Muscles moved beneath his coat like snakes under silk. His claws, even retracted, were visible as slight curves at the end of his fingers. The Ven were known for two things: their pride and their violence. Darak walked directly to the human table. His delegation spread out behind him, blocking the exit. This was not an accident. This was theater. Human, Darak said. His voice was deep, almost a purr. I have been watching you these past days. Taiho looked up. His face showed nothing. I know. You are interesting to me. Your species is weak. Your bodies are slow and fragile. You have no claws, no fangs, no natural weapons. And yet you sit in this hall as if you belong here. We do belong here. Darak's lips pulled back, showing teeth that were very white and very sharp. It might have been a smile. It might have been a threat. With the Ven, these were often the same thing. I think not, Darak said. I think you are pretending. Playing a game you do not understand. Your broken armor tells the truth your words try to hide. You are scavengers. Survivors, perhaps. But not warriors. Not equals. Yuna stood. Commander Darak, if you have an official complaint about humanity's petition, there are proper channels. Sit down, Ambassador. Darak did not look at her. His copper eyes stayed fixed on Taiho. I am not here to file complaints. I am here to offer your soldier a gift. A gift, Taiho repeated. Yes, the gift of clarity. Darak placed both hands on the table and leaned forward. His face was close enough that Taiho could smell him. Meat and musk and something chemical. Tomorrow, I will call for a trial of worth in the open session. Do you know what that is? Single combat, Taiho said. To prove a delegation's right to speak on military matters. Very good. You have studied. Derak's tail swished behind him. The trial is ancient law, older than the coalition itself. If a species wishes to sit on the military council, they must prove they understand war. Not through words, through blood. Yuna felt cold. This is barbaric. Surely the coalition does not still honor such practices. The coalition honors tradition, ambassador. And the trial of worth has never been removed from the charter. Derak straightened. Tomorrow I will challenge humanity. When your champion falls, your petition dies with him. Permanently. You will never sit on the military council. You will never have a voice in the wars that shape this galaxy. The other Ven made sounds of approval. Low growls and rumbles of agreement. Yuna's mind raced. We can decline. There must be a way to decline. There is, Derak said. And if you do, humanity admits it is not worthy. Same result. Different shame. His eyes glittered with amusement. You see, little ambassador, I have studied your species too. You do not back down from challenges. It is in your nature. You would rather die than appear weak. He turned to leave, then paused, looking back over his shoulder at Taiho. I have killed 43 opponents in formal combat, human. Beings faster than you, stronger than you, better armored than you. His gaze dropped to Taiho's cracked chestplate. Though I admit, the armor would be difficult to make worse. The Ven laughed and left the dining area. The doors closed behind them with a sound like a cell locking. Yuna collapsed into her chair. Her hands were shaking. We need to contact Earth, she said. The council, the military leadership, someone? There must be protocols for this. We can delay. Request time to prepare. Send for a proper champion. No, Taiho said. What? There is no time. Even if there was, I would not ask for another champion. Yuna stared at him. Did you hear what he said? 43 kills. The Ven are predators. They evolved hunting things bigger than themselves. Their reflexes, their strength, everything about them is designed for killing. You cannot win. Perhaps. This is your life we are discussing. Taiho was quiet for a moment. Then he pushed back from the table and stood. In the harsh light of the dining area, his armor looked even worse than usual. The cracks seemed deeper, the dents more numerous. When I was young, he said, my grandfather told me a story about a wall. Yuna blinked. A wall? A fortress wall. On old Earth, it was attacked many times over many centuries. Each time, the enemy would break through in some places, kill some defenders, burn some buildings, but the wall would be repaired, made stronger. The broken stones would be replaced with harder ones. The weak points would be reinforced. He touched the crack in his chestplate. Eventually, the wall became unbreakable, not because it had never been damaged, but because every damage had made it tougher. You are not a wall, Taiho. You are a man. Yes. He moved toward the door. And tomorrow, Commander Derak will learn what that means. He left Yuna alone with her fear. The next morning, the Great Hall was more crowded than any day before. Word had spread through the night. A trial of worth. A challenge to the humans. Everyone wanted to see. The galleries were packed. Species that normally avoided each other sat side by side, united in their desire to watch what they assumed would be a quick and bloody entertainment. Derak entered to cheers. His Ven delegation roared their approval, and many other species joined them. He had removed his diplomatic robes and wore only a simple fighting harness. His muscles gleamed. His claws were extended, curved and black and sharp as surgical blades. Then the human side of the hall opened. Taiho walked in. He wore the same armor. The cracked, broken, patched armor that had been mocked for 3 days. He carried no weapon. He showed no emotion, The hall was not sure how to react. Some laughed. Some murmured with confusion. A few fell silent. The Grand Speaker rose. This trial has been called according to ancient law. The Ven sovereignty challenges humanity's right to petition for military council membership. The human delegation has accepted. The terms are single combat, no weapons, until surrender or death. A pause. Does either party wish to withdraw? Derek smiled, showing all his teeth. Taiho shook his head once. Then let the trial begin. The night before the trial of Worth, sleep did not come to Yuna. She lay in her quarters staring at the ceiling, watching the soft glow of the station's lights cycle through their program patterns. Every few minutes, she checked her communication device. She had sent dozens of messages to Earth, to the military council. To anyone who might help Dodd, no response would come in time. The trial was in 12 hours. Finally, she gave up on rest. She dressed in simple clothes and walked the quiet corridors of the Coalition station. Most species were sleeping, or whatever passed for sleep, among beings with different biology. The halls were empty except for cleaning machines and the occasional night guard. She found herself walking toward the observation deck without really meaning to. It was a large room with transparent walls that looked out into space. Stars filled the view like scattered diamonds. A nearby nebula painted purple and blue across the darkness. Taiho was already there. He stood with his back to the door, still wearing his armor. Of course, he was still wearing it. Yuna was not sure she had ever seen him without it during their time at the Coalition. She walked to stand beside him. For a long moment, neither spoke. They just looked at the stars. "You should be sleeping," Yuna finally said. "Tomorrow is going to be difficult. Sleep will not change what happens tomorrow." "Maybe not, but it might help you survive it." Taiho made a sound that might have been a laugh. Might have been something else. "You have already decided I will lose." Yuna turned to face him. "I have decided that mathematics exists. Derek is faster than you, stronger than you. His species has natural weapons built into their bodies. He has 43 kills in formal combat. You have." She paused. "I do not actually know what you have. You are classified so heavily that even I cannot read your full service record. Does that bother you?" "Everything about this bothers me. I am supposed to protect humanity's interests in this hall. Instead, I am watching our military representative walk into a death match wearing armor that looks like it should be in a museum of failed equipment." Taiho was quiet for a moment. Then he turned slightly, and his hand rose to touch the long crack in his chest plate, the ugly weld that held it together. "Do you know what made this mark?" he asked. Yuna shook her head. 6 years ago. The Battle of Kyung Station. His fingers traced the scar in the metal slowly, like he was reading a story written in damage. It was a mining colony. 3,000 civilians, families, children. The swarm came without warning. Yuna felt her breath catch. Everyone knew about the swarm, an insectoid species that swept through systems like a plague, consuming everything organic. They had been stopped eventually, but not before they had destroyed dozens of colonies. 17 of us were stationed there, Taiho continued. Regular army, not special forces, not heroes, just soldiers doing rotation duty at a quiet post. He paused. The swarm hit the orbital defenses first, killed the automated systems in minutes. Then they came for the station. 17 against a swarm attack? We had no choice. The civilian transports needed time to evacuate. Someone had to hold the line. Yuna tried to imagine it. 17 humans against creatures that had brought down entire planetary defenses. It should have been impossible. It should have been suicide. This crack, Taiho said, still touching the scar, came from a swarm queen. She was the size of a small ship. Her main claw went through my armor like it was cloth. Hit my chest, cracked 3 ribs, collapsed 1 lung. His voice was steady, calm, like he was describing something that happened to someone else. I should have died, but you did not. No. I put my sidearm in her eye and fired until it was empty. Then I used my knife. Then my hands. He let his fingers fall from the crack. She died. I did not. Yuna stared at him. She had known Taiho was experienced. She had not known this. He moved his hand to a dent in his shoulder guard. The Siege of New Bizan. We held the colony administration building for 47 days against separatist forces. By the end, we were eating insulation from the walls and drinking recycled water that tasted like machine oil. This dent came from a sniper round that should have taken my head off. I moved at the wrong moment, or the right moment, depending on perspective. Another scar, a hole patched with different colored metal in his leg plate. The Hewan rescue, a civilian liner that lost power in deep space. No help coming. The passengers were dying of cold and oxygen depletion. My squad did a hard dock in failing suits. This hole came from debris that punctured my leg when the airlock failed. I sealed it with emergency foam and kept moving. Carried passengers to the rescue shuttle for 6 hours before I let the medics look at it. He turned slowly, showing her other marks. Other scars. Each one had a story. Each one was a moment when death had reached for him and missed. The retreat from Sector 9, he said, touching a series of scratches on his side. The defense of Inchin Colony. The boarding action at Gumho Station. The night battle on Moon Hana 7. His voice dropped lower. Sergeant Mireille died in that one. I carried her body for 6 kilometers through enemy territory because I would not leave her behind. Yuna felt something shift in her understanding. She had been looking at the armor as a symbol of poverty or stubbornness. She had not seen it for what it really was, a record, a history written in damage. Every crack was a battle survived. Every dent was death avoided. Every patch and weld was a wound that had healed. The new armor they offered me, Taiho said quietly. It was beautiful, clean, perfect. It looked like something a hero would wear, something that had never been tested. He shook his head. I could not wear it. It would be a lie. A lie. It would tell people that I am strong because I am untouched, that I am dangerous because I am perfect. He looked at her, and for the first time, she saw something deep in his eyes. Something old and patient and terrifying. That is not what makes humans dangerous. We are not dangerous because we are never hurt. We are dangerous because we are hurt constantly and we do not stop. Yuna was silent for a long moment. Outside the observation window, a ship passed in the distance. Its lights blinked green and white against the stars. You still might die tomorrow, she said finally. All of this, all these stories, they do not change the mathematics. Darak is still faster, stronger, more naturally equipped for combat. Yes, and you are still going to fight him. Yes. She wanted to argue, to shake him, to make him see reason. But she looked at the armor again, at all those scars, and she understood that reason was not the point. Why? She asked, truly, why do you insist on this? Taiho looked back at the stars. When he spoke, his voice was soft. Because every species in that hall tomorrow needs to understand something. Not with their minds, with their instincts, with the part of them that recognizes predators and prey. He paused. Humans are not prey. We have never been prey. Not to ice ages. Not to plagues. Not to the swarm. Not to anything. And how will tomorrow prove that? He touched the crack in his armor one more time. When I take this off, he said, they will see what is underneath. They will see what it costs to break a human. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. And they will understand that the cost is too high. Yuna did not sleep that night. She sat with Taiho on the observation deck until the station's lights shifted to morning mode. She listened to more stories, more battles, more moments when death had reached and failed Dot by the time the sun rose over the distant planets. She was no longer afraid for him. She was afraid for Derek. The combat arena sat at the heart of the Coalition station like a jewel in a crown. It was old, built in an age when disputes between species were settled with blood more often than words. The floor was made of a dark stone that had absorbed the stains of 1,000 battles. The walls rose high, lined with seats for spectators. Today, every seat was filled. Beings of 100 different shapes and sizes crowded the galleries. They had come from every corner of the Coalition, drawn by the promise of violence and spectacle. Vendors moved through the crowd selling food and drink. Betting stations calculated odds and took wagers. The atmosphere was festive, like a holiday celebration. For most of the spectators, this was entertainment. A break from the boring work of diplomacy. For humanity, it was everything. Yuna sat in the section reserved for the human delegation. She was alone except for 2 junior diplomats who looked like they might be sick. The seats around them were empty. Other species had moved away, not wanting to be associated with the losers. The great doors on the far side of the arena opened. Commander Derek entered. The crowd erupted. Cheers and roars and sounds that had no human equivalent filled the air. Derek walked slowly, savoring the attention. He had prepared for this moment. His fur had been groomed until it shone like burnished gold. His claws had been ritually sharpened, and they caught the light with each step. His muscles flexed beneath his coat as he moved to the center of the arena. He raised his arms. And the cheering grew louder. This was his stage. His moment. He had killed 43 opponents in this arena. He was undefeated, unmatched. He was the reason other species feared thee. Then, the doors on the opposite side of the arena opened. Taeho walked in. The cheering died. Not immediately, but quickly. A wave of silence that spread through the crowd as they saw what entered. The same armor. The cracked, dented, patched armor that they had mocked for days. It looked even worse in the harsh lights of the arena. Every flaw was visible. Every scar. Every sign of damage that should have killed the man wearing it. A few scattered laughs came from the galleries. Someone shouted something in a language Yuna did not understand. The tone was mocking. Taeho walked to the center of the arena and stopped 5 meters from Derek. He did not look at the crowd. He did not respond to the jeers. He simply waited. The Grand Speaker rose from his elevated platform. His many arms spread wide. The trial of worth will now proceed. Commander Derek of the Ven Sovereignty stands as challenger. Delegate Taeho of Earth stands as defender. His voice echoed through the arena. The rules are ancient and simple. No weapons. No assistance. Combat continues until one party surrenders or can no longer continue. Death is permitted, but not required. A pause. The Grand Speaker's 3 eyes moved between the 2 fighters. Remove your armor. Derek's attendants approached. They helped him shed his simple fighting harness, which was more ceremonial than protective anyway. Beneath it, his body was exactly what everyone expected. Muscle over muscle. Power and speed written in every line. His fur rippled as he stretched, showing off for the crowd. His claws extended fully, black and curved and longer than human fingers. He was a predator in its purest form. Then everyone looked at Taeho. He reached up and released the first clasp of his helmet. The sound was small, a soft click of metal. But somehow, in the sudden silence of the arena, it was the loudest thing in the world. Taeho removed his helmet. His face was scarred. A line ran from his forehead, across his left eye, and down to his jaw. The eye still worked, clearly, but the scar was thick and raised. Old. Other marks crossed his cheeks and chin. His nose had been broken at least once and had healed slightly crooked. A murmur went through the crowd. This was not what they expected. Humans were supposed to be soft, pretty, fragile things that lived safe lives on their safe worlds. This face had seen war. Taiho reached for his shoulder guards. He released them and let them fall. Then his arm plates. Then his leg guards. Each piece of armor that dropped revealed more scars. So many scars. His arms were covered with them. Raised lines and rough patches in places where his skin had clearly been torn and healed and torn again. Burns marked his left forearm. Claw marks raked across his right bicep. A circular scar on his shoulder looked like something had bitten completely through the muscle. The crowd had gone silent. Taeho reached for his chest plate. The cracked piece. The one with the ugly weld running from shoulder to hip. He released it. The arena gasped. His torso was a map of survival. There was barely an inch of skin that had not been marked. The scar from the Swarm Queen's claw was massive, a ridge of tissue that matched the crack in his armor exactly. Beside it, other wounds. Stab scars. Bullet wounds. Burns that had healed in rippling patterns. Places where surgery had saved his life, marked by the straight lines of medical intervention. He should be dead. Looking at his body, seeing what had been done to it, there was no other logical conclusion. He should have died 12 times. 24. More. But he was standing in the arena, breathing, alive. Derek stared. His copper eyes were wide. His forehead flattened against his body. An instinctive response to threat that his conscious mind had not authorized. Something was wrong. This was not prey. This was something that had been killed over and over again. Something that had refused to stay dead. Something that had taken the worst the universe could offer and had kept moving. Taiho met Derek's eyes. 43 kills, the human said. His voice was calm, quiet. I stopped counting at 200. The arena was utterly silent. The humans, the Grand Speaker said, his voice slightly unsteady, have revealed their champion. The trial may begin. No one moved. Derek's claws were still extended, but his posture had changed. He was no longer standing like a predator ready to pounce. He was standing like an animal that had suddenly realized it might be the prey. Begin, the Grand Speaker repeated. Derek charged. He was fast. Faster than any human could match. His legs drove him forward like a missile. His claws slashed at the air where Taiho's throat should have been. But Taiho was not there. He had moved. Not faster than Derek. That was impossible. But earlier, he had started moving before Derek finished deciding to attack. Like he had seen the decision forming in those copper eyes. Like he had read the future in the tension of those muscles. Derek spun, slashing again. Taiho blocked with his forearm, taking the cut. Blood appeared, bright red against his scarred skin. He did not seem to notice. He stepped inside Derek's guard and hit him. It was not a powerful blow by Ven standards. It was not even a powerful blow by human standards. But it landed exactly where it needed to land. Nerve cluster. Solar plexus equivalent. The kind of spot that a Ven would not think to protect because no prey species should know where it was. Derek grunted and staggered back. The crowd made sounds of shock. The great Commander Derek had been pushed back. By a human, by the broken soldier in the broken armor. Derek roared and attacked again. And again. His claws found flesh. They opened cuts on Taiho's arms, his chest, his legs. Blood flowed freely. By any normal measure, the human should have been slowing down. Should have been weakening from blood loss. He was not slowing down. Each time Darak's claws found him, Taiho took the pain and used it. He used the moment of contact to move closer, to land another precise blow, to find another nerve cluster, another weak point, another place where the predator's body was vulnerable. 5 minutes passed. 10 minutes. Darak was breathing hard now. His attacks were slower, wilder, desperate. He had hurt the human badly. Blood covered both of them. But the human was still standing, still moving, still hitting those precise, devastating points that made Darak's muscles fail and his vision blur. "What are you?" Darak gasped. Taiho did not answer. He just kept coming. 11 minutes. Darak threw a massive blow, all his remaining strength behind it. It should have crushed the human skull. Taiho caught the arm, twisted, pulled, and Darak was on the ground with the human's scarred hands around his throat. The arena was silent. No one breathed. No one moved. Taiho looked down at the great commander. His face was calm, patient, peaceful, almost. "Yield," he said. Darak's eyes were wild with terror. Not the terror of death. The terror of not understanding. Of having his entire view of the universe broken in 11 minutes. "Yield," Taiho said again. Darak yielded. The word echoed through the arena like thunder. "I yield." Commander Darak's voice was barely a whisper, but every being in the galleries heard it. The acoustics of the ancient arena carried the sound of defeat to every ear and audio receptor and sensing organ in the packed crowd. Taiho released his grip on the Ven's throat and stepped back. Blood dripped from dozens of cuts across his body. It pooled beneath him on the dark stone floor, mixing with the stains of older battles. He should have been dying. By any reasonable medical calculation, he should have been unconscious from blood loss alone. He stood straight and looked up at the galleries. No one spoke. No one moved. The silence was complete in a way that silence rarely is. Not the absence of sound, but the presence of shock so deep that sound itself seemed afraid to exist. The grand speaker rose slowly. His many arms trembled. When he spoke, his voice cracked. The trial is concluded. The human delegation has proven worth through victory in combat." He paused, consulting his ancient protocols. "Humanity's petition for observer status on the military council is approved by right of conquest." Still silence. Yuna stood from her seat. Her legs shook, but she forced them to carry her down the steps and onto the arena floor. Medical teams were rushing toward Taiho, but she reached him first. "You need help," she said. "Please, let them treat you." Taiho looked at her. His eyes were calm, clear, as if the pain was happening to someone else. Perhaps after so many wounds, it was. "Soon," he said. "First, I need to do something." He turned away from the medical teams and walked across the arena, slowly, deliberately, leaving a trail of blood behind him with each step. He walked too, where his armor lay in pieces on the stone floor. The crowd watched as he bent down, moving stiffly, and picked up his chest plate, the cracked, welded piece that had started all of this. He held it for a moment, looking at it. Then he began to put it back on, piece by piece. The arm guards, the leg plates, the shoulder guards with their dents and patches. Each component of the armor that had been mocked and ridiculed returned to its place on his bleeding body. By the time he finished, the galleries had begun to murmur. But it was not mockery anymore. It was something else. Something that sounded almost like reverence. Taiho picked up his helmet last. He held it under his arm and turned to face the crowd. "Humanity," he said, and his voice carried through the arena without amplification, "has walked among the stars for 300 years. We are young. We know this. We do not have the ancient histories of the Fen or the living memories of the Koel, We did not evolve with claws or scales or armor plating. We are soft, fragile, easy to break. He touched the crack in his armor. But we do not break. Not really. Not in the ways that matter. He paused, letting the words settle. Every scar on this armor is a lesson we learned. Every dent is a battle we won. Every patch is a wound that healed. Humans do not survive because we are strong. We survive because we refuse to accept death as an answer. In the gallery, Delegate Vorix of the Fen sat frozen. His scales had gone pale. The jokes he had made 3 days ago seemed like the words of a different person. A foolish person who had not understood what he was seeing. The cow delegation had turned to face Taio. They no longer showed their backs. Their metal bodies were still focused, giving him their complete attention. You looked at my armor and saw weakness, Taio continued. You saw a species too poor to afford proper equipment. Too proud to accept help. Too foolish to know when to retreat. A thin smile crossed his scarred face. You were right about the pride. We have always been a proud species. But the armor is not weakness. It is a message. He swept his gaze across the galleries. Every being in this room will be hurt someday. Injured. Damaged. Broken. When that happens, you will have a choice. You can hide the damage. Pretend it never happened. Wear new armor that tells lies about who you are. He shook his head. Or you can wear your scars openly. Let the universe see what tried to kill you. Let your enemies know what they are facing. He lifted the helmet and put it on. The faceplate locked into place with a soft click. Humans wear our scars, he said. We remember every wound, every loss, every battle. And we keep fighting. The arena remained silent for a long moment. Then, from somewhere in the galleries, a sound began. A rhythmic pounding. Hands or appendages or metal bodies striking surfaces in a slow, steady beat. It spread through the crowd. More and more species joining. Not applause. Something older. Something that crossed cultural boundaries and spoke to something primal. Respect. Taio walked toward the exit. The medical teams parted to let him pass, then fell in behind him. Yuna hurried to catch up, walking beside him through the great doors. Behind them, the rhythmic pounding continued. Commander Darak rose slowly from the arena floor. His attendants rushed to help him, but he waved them away. He stood alone, blood matted in his golden fur, and watched the human disappear through the doors. One of his subordinates approached cautiously. Commander, we should return to our quarters. The healers are waiting. Darak did not respond immediately. He was staring at the trail of blood the human had left behind. So much blood. Enough that the human should have died 3 times over during the fight. But he had kept moving, kept fighting, kept winning. Commander? Darak shook himself. I want the human's full service record, he said quietly. Every battle, every mission, everything. That information is classified by Earth's military council. They will not share it. Then find it another way. Darak's voice was strange, distant. I need to know how many of them are like this. His subordinate looked confused. Like what, Commander? Darak finally turned away from the blood trail. His copper eyes held something that none of his people had ever seen in them before. Something that looked almost like fear. Like survivors, he said. Like the ones who should be dead and are not. In the human delegation's medical bay, Yuna watched the doctors work on Taio. They had removed his armor again, carefully this time with respect. They were sealing wounds and replacing blood and doing the 100 small things that kept damaged bodies alive. Taio bore it in silence. You could have died, Yuna said. She had said it before. She would probably say it again. It was the only thing she could think to say. I could have, Taio agreed. I have been close many times. Today was not the closest. How do you do it? How do you keep fighting when your body is... She stopped. She did not have words for what his body was. Taeho was quiet for a moment. The doctors continued their work around him. There is a memory I keep, he said finally, from the Battle of Kyung Station. After I killed the Swarm Queen, I was lying in a corridor, bleeding, broken. I could not move. I was certain I was going to die. He paused, and I heard crying. A child, somewhere in the station. Still alive. Still waiting for rescue. Yuna listened. I got up, Taeho said simply. I do not know how. My body should not have worked. But I got up, and I found the child, and I carried her to the evacuation shuttle. Her name was Jiwon. She was 7 years old. His eyes were distant, seeing something far away. I have 100 memories like that. 1,000. Moments when I should have stopped and did not. Because there was always something worth getting up for. Someone worth protecting. A mission worth completing. He looked at Yuna. That is how humans do it. We do not fight for ourselves. We fight for each other. And there is always someone else. The medical bay door opened. A junior diplomat entered, his face flushed with excitement. Ambassador, the Coalition Council has voted. Full membership on the Military Council, not just observer status. The motion passed with 83% approval. He was almost bouncing. They want to meet with Delegate Taeho tomorrow. All of the major military powers. They want to discuss alliance terms. Yuna nodded slowly. She looked at Taeho, who was still being patched together by the doctors. Tell him he will be there, she said. The diplomat left. Yuna sat down beside Taeho's medical bed. She was tired. The kind of tired that sleep could not fix. But for the first time since arriving at the Coalition station, she felt something she had almost forgotten. Hope. They respect us now, she said. Perhaps, Taeho replied. Or perhaps they fear us. With aliens, it is often hard to tell the difference. Does it matter? Taeho considered this. No, he said eventually. What matters is that they will listen. And when they listen, we can teach them. Teach them what? He touched the cracked armor that lay beside his bed. The same armor. The same scars. The same message written in damage and survival. That the universe is full of things that want to break us. And that the only answer is to keep getting up. He almost smiled. Humans are very good at getting up. Yuna thought about that for a long time. Outside the medical bay, the Coalition station continued its eternal orbit around a distant star. Delegates from 100 worlds walked its corridors, discussing treaties and trade routes and the future of galactic civilization. And somewhere in those corridors, the story was already spreading. The story of a human soldier in cracked armor, who had walked into a hall full of contempt and walked out with the respect of an empire. They would tell it for generations. The story of the day the galaxy learned what humanity was made of, not strength, not speed, not natural weapons or superior technology. Just a simple, terrifying refusal to stop.